So, as we touched on earlier, this section of the show is going to be all about exclusive content in video games. We did kind of allude to whether or not the new Indiana Jones would be, and kind of what that means for the consumers, the people that manufacture the console, and the developers. So, Ben, how do you feel about exclusive content?
Yeah, it's a funny one because I think, as you said, there's kind of three viewpoints on it, and I think everyone's viewpoint is going to be different. So there's the consumer's viewpoint of exclusive content, then there's the studio who's making the game, and then there's obviously the brand that sits up here, the Microsoft, the Sony, who purchase it to be exclusive. So I think if you're a consumer, then exclusive content can feel a bit of there's a bit of friction there. Like for example, if you're an Xbox player and there's a game coming out on PlayStation that you want to play, but you can only play it on PlayStation, it's like well, I'm not going to swap just for that. But what it might do is if you're on the fence, it might make your decision easier. And it really does come down to like with the consumers, it used to be like I'm going to, you might buy a console because that's what all your friends are buying. It's like, oh, well, we can play online together on that. And now that crossplay is becoming, it's not massively widespread, but it's becoming more prevalent. And I think it's only the way that the industry will keep going. Like there's less emphasis needed on that. Like either hardware is fine. Essentially specs are about as good as each other. It's just personal preference. And if the games are crossplay, then it's fine. It doesn't matter. But if a game is exclusive, it can restrict you getting it, and it might, it means you can't get it. As a studio who's developing the game, in one aspect, that could be great if Sony's come to you and it's like, here's a truckload of money. We want your game exclusive. We want it on our console only. Great, that can secure some future for the studio. It gives them more runway. And it eases some pressure that they've got that money coming in, and they can focus on. They know they're going to get a big push from, say, a Sony or a Microsoft, whoever's got the exclusivity. But on the flip side of that, is what it means is that you are only getting a push from one platform. Whereas if you have a game and you're across all of them, you can get pushed on all of them, and you can reach more players. So your game sales, in theory, are going to be better. So it's weighing up that decision of if someone comes to you for an exclusivity deal, are you confident enough that if you turn that down, you'll do better by pushing it everywhere, or would you rather take the exclusivity deal? And exclusivity deals aren't always, indefinite. We often see it seems like more on PC. If Epic Games might get, a year-long exclusivity, and then Steam can get it. So it's not forever, and you've got to take it from which is going to be better for you, and it's got to be that choice. It's not black and white. It's right for everyone, it's wrong for everyone. It really depends on the studio's position and what's going to be best for them. And then obviously from the like your Sony's and your Microsoft, whether they are going to be exclusive, it's kind of like, is that going to be enough to tip someone to buy my console rather than the other one? And I don't know how you think about it. It's like maybe my head's wrong in it. When I think of exclusivity, like my immediate is, okay, Halo on Xbox and Mario on Nintendo. Whereas it feels like Sony always seems to have slightly more platform exclusive games, but they don't seem to have
There's no like big mascot kind of character
yeah,
for them.
it's not like got the franchise, which is, this is, PlayStation is the console for this.
I think the closest they would have nowadays would probably be something like either God of War or I think the new Spider-Man is still an exclusive.
Yeah, yes, still an exclusive. I think the first game was, and Miles Morales is as an exclusive. But yeah, it's just when I was thinking about it, it's like, oh yeah, Halo, Xbox, Mario, Nintendo. Which exclusivity is not new. Back in the day, that was the norm. You wouldn't have many games crossing
Every
over
system
from
was so different to make games for that you had to kind of make that choice out the gate. What platform are we going to release on? Now I think they're all a lot more unified in how the games are made, thanks to things like Unreal. That it's more a business decision rather than a technical decision.
Yeah, and I think that it comes back to how this might be seen perceived negatively by having an exclusivity deal is what you were saying about why we think that the Indiana Jones game is going to be not exclusive because the comment about we just want people to play games. We don't want to restrict people. We just want people playing and enjoying games. And it can be seen from sometimes from a consumer's point of view is that okay, you don't want me to play this game because I'm not on that console. And it can stretch further than just the games. So there was a big thing like last year. I think it was last year. All the years are merging into one. When the Marvel game came out, and unless you were playing on a PlayStation, you couldn't have the Spider-Man character. So if you were playing on PC or if you were playing on Xbox, you didn't get that content. So you felt maybe shortchanged as an Xbox or PC player that you weren't getting it, and it can rub people the wrong way. And I was reading people saying like, oh well, maybe they could have countered it by giving exclusive different characters to PC and Xbox, like a Black Panther character or something like that. But it kind of is at odds with we just want people to play games and have fun playing these games to then be like, right, box them into their little silos. So it's a really tricky one, and I don't know what the answer is. But it feels like there is, as we say, it's kind of at odds with each other that the crossplay is becoming such a big thing now, and then exclusivity is also still a really big player in console launches and console games and launches. It's kind of like they're kind of fighting each other across the crossplay. Like we don't care, like people just play games, pick the console that works for you, and then the exclusivity deal is like, no, if you want to play this game, you have to be on this console. Like, have you run into any issues where it's like, oh, I want to play this game, but I can't because I can't get it on the system that I use?
I bought a PlayStation 3 just to play Metal Gear Solid 4. So, yes.
So you're buying into what they want,
Yeah.
into the plan. So you're feeding into like the top dog. You're betraying the consumer. But that's interesting that you did that because I mean that is people can make that decision like, oh, if people want it enough they'll buy the console, which as we say you can try and tip people over to make that decision, or you can rest on the fact like, okay, people will buy this. Excuse me, people will buy this twice. And you see that happen sometimes with like some of the long life games. I mean, like a GTA, for example, it's gone through 360 to Xbox One. It's on PC, it's on the different generations of PlayStation, and there are people who will buy that game over and over and over again. So you're hitting the same person multiple times. So that can be a factor. What else did I have on this? So what did you think of the exclusives that were launched? Because I'm in the situation now with the next gen consoles coming out where I feel like if I'm going to buy one and I'm very close, I want to buy an Xbox. I've always been an Xbox player. I had original Xbox 360. I skipped the one. I've always been Xbox, and I'm leaning towards Xbox. Kind of like, oh, I do want to play the new Spider-Man game,
I
and
think
I
that's
do
the
want to play
thing. This
Ratchet and Clank.
generation is like the 360, the PlayStation 2 era, the PlayStation 3 era were all, oh, my friend's got this console, I need that console. Now, like you said, it's more, okay, what software does this console have that makes it more in line with what I want, rather than, back in the days, like, well, if I want to play with my friends, I have to get this one. So
Yeah.
it has changed quite a bit, I think. I don't know what I would go for nowadays. Growing up, I was always PlayStation, 100%. But just because I'm a PC gamer now and Game Pass is a thing, I might go to Xbox if I was to get one. I'm honestly not sure.
Yeah, it's interesting with that as well because it feels like, as I say, and I think it's purely a perception thing. It always feels like Sony has more exclusive titles, and if you're an exclusive title on Sony, you're a bit more restricted as the consumer. Whereas if you are in the Microsoft ecosystem now, I think every game, or if not every, most of them are geared up. If you obviously need a PC that's spec enough. If you've got a PC that's high enough spec, you can play the game on either an Xbox or a PC. So it's less restrictive. So even
Yeah.
though it could be an exclusive, it's not tied to a specific piece of hardware. You're in
Yeah,
the
it's tied to
Microsoft
their
ecosystem.
platform, and they got that buy one, just play anywhere across the last gen system, this gen, and PC as well. So they're very open to just having people play their games. It feels like.
Yeah. So that again with me and my dilemma of PlayStation, Xbox. That again tips me back to Xbox. I mean, I've got Game Pass for PC, so it's not for me. That's not a big leap to then go to an Xbox because I've already seen a lot of the titles, and it's like, oh, well, I can play this on the Xbox, I can play it on PC. So yeah, it's interesting. What did you think of the launch titles for PlayStation? Being a PlayStation guy, I don't think you're going to buy one. I'm getting the vibes that you're
Yeah,
not.
the only
But
one I can think of is Bug Snacks, just because the song's so catchy. I listened to it yesterday. Um, and honestly,
want to
none of them.
sing it for us?
No, none of them were kind of like big ones that were like, wow, I need it on release.
Hmm.
Like, they aren't a Super Mario 64. They aren't. Come back to me. But you know, they weren't ones that like, holy moly, I need this system on release day. So thank you, Adam. Miles Morales and Demon's Souls. Demon's Souls is just a re-release. So Miles Morales is kind of the new one there. Um,
Yeah.
but I've heard great things about the first Spider-Man, so that one could have been one, but it's just one new game I've not played before isn't enough to move it for me.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's what makes the exclusivity, whether it's worth it or not. Like, is Sony putting? I mean, Sony owns the Spider-Man IP, so that kind of makes sense. But we're saying that we think now that Microsoft, has Bethesda, who have the Lucasfilm IP, we don't think that will be exclusive. It's do those exclusive titles, is buying them exclusively, does that move the needle for enough people to buy that console? And it will remain to be seen. I don't think it's everything. I don't think if you look at when we look at the sales in the future and be like, oh, okay, if PlayStation massively outsold Xbox, I don't think you go, oh, it's because the exclusive titles were better. I don't, it's a factor, but it's not the be all and end all. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I feel like Xbox didn't. They kind of Halo was their big one. It's always been their exclusive game, and obviously that was delayed from the launch. So they were kind of felt backwards. It kind of feels like Sony are more on the exclusive side than Microsoft. Again, that might just be a perception. So it will be interesting to see which model wins and whether that has any impact going forward as if we see more exclusive deals come through or we see less exclusive deals and it's more open
Yeah.
play. So
One thing we haven't touched on is like merchants having exclusive things in games. Like, I can't remember examples off the top of my head because it's been a while since I've seen one. But it used to be if you bought your games at Target, for example, you would get in-game items that other people who bought it at, say, Walmart wouldn't get.
okay.
Yeah.
That's not something I've actually ever really come across. I wonder whether that's going to be
I think Game
right.
Here quite often gets kind of exclusive. Like, if you buy from Game, you'll get like an extra gun in Battlefield or something like that.
That is interesting. That is interesting. Yeah, I guess that's a fourth player in the game.
Yeah.
It's the merchants themselves. So yeah, I mean maybe that's just me. I've never really seen much of that, so I don't know how big of a factor that is. But that is definitely an interesting one, and I guess it's going to make life easier with as we move to a more digital world. There's less discs. So yeah, I think that's an interesting point. So we'll see what happens there. So
Yeah.
that was kind of everything I had. So unless there's anything else that you want to talk about on exclusivity,
No,
we can call
I
that a
think
wrap.
that's a good place to wrap it up. So thank you everyone so much for watching. We will catch you next time on Thursday, the 21st at 4 p.m. But until next time, for there you go, I'll do it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. We will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.